Hey there, nice to see you. Good evening. It is time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors, journalists, all people who put stuff out in the Bronx so you can kind of see what they're thinking about and get a little insight into what's going on. And in our second segment, we usually do arts and culture, and we have a wonderful comic book writer who's written a kind of a story, part of a comic book character volume. And so we'll tell you about that. All right. After we get finished with our first segment, it's kind of a reunion for us. It's our good friend, Steven Goodstein, who has now landed with the Riverdale Press as a reporter. Nice to see you again, Steve.
Hey, Gary, thank you so much for having me once
Yep.
again.
And so let's see. So last we saw you were the Bronx Times. Is there something to talk about what you did in between the I don't know, it was a couple of years, I guess, the Bronx Times, the Riverdale Press, or now we're just
Uh,
here?
well, I was working for a council member in the
Oh, that's
Bronx
nice.
for a few months. Yeah, but journalism is just it's just my passion. It's what I love to do.
And
So
now you're at an award-winning paper with, I
yeah,
guess, an old friend
no
because
pressure.
E.T. Rodriguez, who's now the editor, used to also work at the Bronx Times, and
That's right.
there you go.
That's right.
So how's it been covering the Northwest Bronx?
It's been really interesting. It's an area when I was with the Bronx Times, we didn't cover all that often, not for, lack of caring, but just it was outside of our,
Yeah,
immediate
I mean
coverage
they
area.
really cover the East Bronx,
Right.
and so
Right.
you've enjoyed it. I mean, something that we're going
It's
to
been
talk about.
great. It's been absolutely great. Yeah, I mean, ET has been very helpful. It's improving my writing every day, and
Yeah.
we have a great staff there, a great team that works really hard and puts in the time and gets the story.
Yeah, and the legacy of the paper and everything it's
Absolutely.
done for I don't know how many years, 50 years, more than 50.
I
I'm
think it's
sure that
actually turning 75 this year. The Riverdale Press.
75.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I guess I'm not old enough just yet.
Ah,
Anyway, this to me was a very interesting story, and people who do read the paper see that I wrote a letter to the paper about referring to this story. This was the idea of affordable housing going up in Kingsbridge. So I'll give a little of the background, then you can fill us in. When visitation took down, sold the school and the property that it had on West 240th Street and right near Broadway. There'd been a lot of talk about what was going to happen to it. And I guess now that's when I throw it to you. What just got certified and is going to happen over there at that huge plot of land near 240th Street and Broadway?
sure, sure. Well, it's nearly, I believe, 280,000 square feet,
Wow.
and it's going to provide a full, 100% affordable housing to, I believe, 339 residential units, studios to three bedrooms, and yeah, I mean, part of the site was on the former, of the former visitation. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, this is a big thing, and construction started earlier, last month, and they're expecting a completion date about 2027.
So, I mean, one thing you didn't mention, and I will mention, is
Sure.
Tishman Speyer is the developer, and
Yes.
I think they deserve a lot of credit because, and I'll just tell you the history. Maybe you're not aware because you weren't working with the paper at the time. There was a lot of concern because originally they were talking about one bedrooms and studio apartments, and if in fact they had done that, listen, we know we need all kinds of housing, but with a property that size, you really want to put in families and make it housing for people who are going to work in the community and live in the all those kinds of things. And so that concern was basically thrown out the window with your story. The whole notion of 100% affordable housing is really impressive because we see that somewhat. Sometimes you say we're putting up a building and 40% will be
Right. Right.
affordable. So just give us a little more background about that, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So the in terms of the affordable housing aspect of it is really, I mean, this is a big project, and this is, you want to make sure that affordable housing, we utilize all the space, obviously, with the housing crisis we have in New York and throughout the country. We want to provide housing, but in the right way. We
Yeah.
need to make sure.
And one of the other things that I noted in there, that 53 of the apartments, and this again goes to their credit, 53 of the apartments will be supportive housing to individuals. This is from your article,
Yes.
who were previously homeless, and they're working with a not-for-profit partner to assist in the placement of those individuals. So
Right.
instead of just saying we're bringing homeless people in, and then of course there are issues, they're going to do the right thing.
Right. And Breaking Ground is partnering with them, and they're very reputable. And yeah, I mean, I think this is something. I think this is a solution. I think this isn't something that should be criticized and like kind of nitpicked at. I think this is something that is it needs to happen all over the city, but it needs to happen in the right way.
Yes, absolutely. Now, another thing, of course, in your article, which I thought was interesting, because we lost, and I'm not talking about public or private or Catholic schools, we lost school seats, and in addition to the area that they're going to use for the housing, there's also going to be a school.
That's correct. Yes, we haven't gotten as much info on the school itself, but we have received confirmed reports that the school is indeed going to be going up.
And so that's for 700 seats at an elementary school. Now, this will be a public school.
I believe
Right.
so. Yes.
Oh,
Don't
if
quote
it's
me on
the-
that, but I believe so.
Well, I mean, the article says, it's your article.
Oh,
It says the New York Construction Authority, and that
Oh,
would suggest
okay.
that it's
Then
going to
do
be.
quote me on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then go right ahead. And I'll tell you, just an aside for people who didn't read last week's Riverdale Press, I wrote a letter because, as you well know, in my neighborhood, the Van Cortlandt Jewish Center is planning to sell their building, and at the moment they're looking to sell it to market rate. I thought this was a really good example of how a faith-based property could be converted to appropriate housing that will benefit the people of the Bronx. Just as an aside, it's not going to be in your jurisdiction, but let's say, for example, the Archdiocese closed 3 other schools, including All Hallows High School in the Bronx, and there's some question about what are those properties going to be. In this case, visitation, and ultimately Tishman Speyer did the right thing. Yeah. Anything else you want to comment on it? I know there was green construction and all that. It should be a sustainable design. I think all that is healthy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's positive, and I want to just make this point. I just want to make this point clear, is that these schools have a long and rich history, and education, for youth is obviously is paramount. But if affordable housing is going up, it needs to go up in the right way and under the right circumstances. We're not, the schools need to be there, but housing also needs to be there. It's a very tough, push and pull.
Yeah, well, you can't put up housing for families and then not be concerned about the schools and, of course, all
Exactly.
the other infrastructure needs. Of course, in that area, there's going to be a supermarket coming up on 238th Street, west of Broadway. So those kinds of infrastructure issues seem to be resolved for this project. Of course, we'll check with you as it develops. And we'll see how it goes. Anyway, another development issue that you wrote about. This was the headline was "The Men's Shelter Breaks Ground Despite Community Opposition." Now, this goes to 6661 Broadway, and there's a men's shelter expected to open later this year. What's the concern? What's out there?
Well, the concern is that the people that are being admitted to these facilities, thank you, yeah, they're not being checked previously. There's no background checks. There's their sexual their
Sexual predators.
sexual predator
legal.
history there. Yeah, absolutely, thank you. So you can't just put in my opinion, and on the opinion of a lot of people in that neighborhood, including a friend of mine who just moved there last year and, was really questioning it, is that you can't, people need help. Mental health is a very important thing, but you can't just put, you can't just plop one of these places in the
Yeah.
middle and not do some sort of background check. I mean, there's a gymnastics, there's a gymnastics school up the block, and children are there frequently, and in it going in and out, and you can't have a bunch of people who haven't been, background checked, just walking the
And
streets.
so, using the Tishman Spire project as an example, who put in some homeless services, do we know if there is a qualified not-for-profit going to work with them to work with the men who are in there? Or is it one of those, they're just going to give them housing and throw it to the wind, so to speak?
Well, this is a West Tab project, and I believe they're working with the Department of Homeless Services. We do not have any more information than what they've provided to us in the story,
Right.
and we're still awaiting response from them. So this is kind of a gray area kind of thing.
Well, that's fascinating. And the other thing that emerged from your story is that this was, it didn't go through some of the procedures and vetting processes that might have come up with a better project for the community. Another one of these where they just dropped it in. And that's my sense of what happened here.
Absolutely, yeah,
And
and yeah.
well, you also wrote about the Broadway Community Alliance, which is a civic group formed in response to development projects. Is there anything to be done, or at this point, this is what's going to be developing?
Uh, they've broken ground.
Oh, so there you go.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you're
yeah.
really going to need a court
That's the coup de
injunction.
grace, right? I mean,
Mm.
people are upset because there was several businesses there, including a Chinese restaurant that had been there for, I believe, 25 years or so, that had been removed to make space for this new facility.
So that is that in and of itself is problematic, and so as I said, the only thing that would stop it, for example, would be a court order. Anyway, we got about a minute left. Just curious now. We're recording this on a Wednesday. What do you got coming up? You got something you want to tell us about? That's in the paper. In the
Should I
paper this week.
divulge anything? I don't know. Well, we're doing a story. I think ET and I are going to work on a story together about how vendors keep warm. And it's
Oh, that's interesting.
it's a little
During this,
nippy out there. Yeah, so we
yeah.
want to get their background and kind of like tell their story on how they keep warm
What
and just
what an interesting thing. I was, in some of the areas where you are, and it doesn't matter where you are in the city. People need to make a living, and there they are out there in the cold. Anyway, Steven Goodstein, congratulations at being at the Riverdale Press,
thank you.
and we will continue to read what you write, and we certainly appreciate your being with us on the Bronx Buzz.
Well, Gary, I appreciate this very much. Thank you.
Great. All right. What we're going to do, folks, we will take a short break. And then when we come back, I told you that we have he has been a comic book writer, but he has created or part of an effort to write about a black superhero comic book hero right after this. Don't go.
19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. You know, I love when my friends come on the show, and it is my buddy Alex Simmons. And Alex, nice to have you with us. Listen, the credits, I got pages of them. Award-winning freelance writer, screenplays, playwright, teaching artist, comic book creator, educational consultant, father of the kids who went to school with my kids. So we've been around together a long time. This is very
That's
exciting.
my proudest point right there.
Yeah, I guess so. This is very exciting. So people might know that you are the creator of the acclaimed adventure book series Blackjack, but now there's a new character. Now, you didn't create this character. This is Captain America, the Shield of Sam Wilson. Tell me all about this character and where it's at.
Well, in short, Sam Wilson appeared years ago in Marvel Comics as the Falcon, and he became a partner, sidekick, however one wants to look at that, to Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. And what happened was that over the years, Sam began to develop his own, some of the certain storylines. He became even more formidable as the Falcon, you know, going off on solo adventures of his own, teaming up with other superheroes in the Marvel Universe. And then, as people who may know from the movies, Captain America, Steve Rogers, met Sam when he came back into the present after he was revived. They began to work together, and eventually, after Endgame, Sam received the shield from Steve himself, saying, "You are now Captain America." So Sam has been on this journey to find out what it means to be Captain America, a Black Captain America in present day United States of America. And it's had its highs and lows.
Is it really that contemporary? I mean, present day. I
Yes.
mean, you know,
Oh,
we
yeah.
know who was
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
elected president. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
so it's in that context.
As a matter of fact, the new movie that's coming out, Captain America, that's coming out, number 4, I believe, is coming out in a matter of was it a month or so? Very shortly. Anyway, let me just put it that way. Sam has to deal with the new president of the United States, played by Harrison Ford, who eventually becomes a super powered individual himself, and Cap has to go up against him. So in certain ways, it's prophetic. You know, its timing is unreal.
Unreal, yeah. I just want to ask you in general. I mean, I know, but we talked, of course, on the air about the creation of Blackjack. Now, this is another Black superhero. Talk about the imperative of doing this and what you believe and probably witness the effect of having Black superheroes on the children of the Bronx and the children of the world.
Well, I mean, I'll do it as succinctly as I can because I know we don't have a lot of time. But I was born and raised in the 1950s, and for the first 12 years of my life in particular, maybe the first 15, as far as mainstream heroes on television, in the major feature films and all of that, there were no heroes of color. The few that I had Tonto as a partner of the Lone Ranger for a few years, and then I had Alexander Scott, partner to Kelly Robinson in a TV series called I Spy. So you had a Native American, and then you had a Black character as heroes. But for the first 20 years of my life, it really wasn't there on a large scale. So what's happened over the decades is there have been more and more African Americans and people of color put into mainstream stories, which is imperative and important because people need to see someone like themselves on that screen doing positive things, affecting and influencing society the way it really does. So Sam Wilson's contribution to the Marvel universe is prominent, not as prominent as, say, the Black Panther, but then that's another great example of when the Black Panther movie came out, there were kids of all colors and sizes running around dressed as T'Challa, the Black Panther, because they just saw a fantastic superhero and a fantastic story. So I think it's imperative that we do stories that have people of color and different backgrounds and races and religions and life choices, because we need to represent the real society that exists on this planet. And to do that, it starts with, who do I see standing up for me, doing the right things on the big screen?
You know, listen, we could have a whole sociological discussion. You and I are about the same age. I grew up the same time. I, of course, was never aware that that was missing, but you as a child recognized that and said, wait a minute, where am I? Where am I? Put me in there. So this is a volume. This is a book of stories about.
This is a collection. This is a collection of short stories written by 11 to 12 different writers. I'm, honored to be one of them. And it was put together by, I should say, edited and organized, orchestrated by Jesse Holland, who's a great writer and a professor and an editor and a journalist and a number of other fantastic things. So you've got 11 to 12 great stories in there, all adventures of Sam Wilson, all showing some aspect of his journey as a hero, as a superhero, and as an African-American hero and superhero in the world in which we exist.
Were you asked to participate, or did you already have the story? I want to get into a little bit about the creative process.
Jesse Hollins again came to me a few years back and asked me to be a part of the anthology that was written about T'Challa. It was called Black Panther Tales of Wakanda. So I had a short story in that. And when the opportunity came for us to do a Captain America Sam Wilson anthology, he was nice enough to ask me again. And I went, oh yeah, I'm there. And so I jumped right on it. And this has been a year or so in the works. So this was just released January 14th of 2025. So the book's available in Amazon and any other place you can get your hands on a great book. So people should be getting their hands on this great book.
Captain America, The Shield of Sam Wilson. Now, give us a little bit. I don't want to steal the thunder from it, but what kind of story did you come up with? I don't give it all away, but what was the inspiration in that?
In my story, I went back to touch on something that I hadn't seen them deal with for a while, which is Sam Wilson's parents, because his father was a minister, much like Martin Luther King, and yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. His father was a minister who was shot down in a violent act on the streets of Harlem. And that had an impact on Sam's life. His mother died a year or so later. So to me, I felt that while he's on this journey to figure out where he fits into the world these days and what he represents, I wanted to do a story that also took him back to the people that had a major influence on his life and the values that they shared with him. Because I think it's very important that we understand that, again, whoever you are, if you're a parent, you pass on certain perceptions and preconceptions and values and lessons and some other things to your offspring, to your children.
Of
Yeah,
course.
to your children. And you've got to hope that they can do the best they can with that. So that's the storyline. And he has to go up against a super scientific villainous organization called AIM, who are messing with time control. And so it's a big deal with what he has to do and an ethical choice he has to make.
You may or may not know, I teach people how to be on television, on radio and television. One of the things that is imperative, who is your audience? Who are you talking to? When you put something like this together, I know part of you wants to educate young people. Is this written in a way that is for young people? Is it for adults? Do you think about who might be reading this? Or do you just simply spit out whatever story you got and you do it? Or do you really write it for an audience?
I try not to spit out anything other than occasionally a bad piece of apple pie. But no, this is written as an all audience piece. In other words, there's no extreme violence, vulgarity, or profanity in a way that I feel that people of certain young age, as well as on up the ladder, couldn't find something in this story and shouldn't be held back from them. I think it's an all access piece. And I believe that, once again, parents should, if you're going to show it to or read it to your younger kids, read it first yourself. But I think ultimately there shouldn't be anything really objectionable in the story if you're looking for good stories about a heroic person or a person trying to figure out, how do I fit into the world and how can I do good in the world?
And the language will work.
Yes, the language will definitely work.
Will work. Listen, I know Alex is teaching. He's teaching film writing and all that.
They're waiting for me.
They're waiting for you. One last question. Anything next? You got anything in the works, or you just live in life every day?
Well, there's some stuff happening with my Blackjack character and Los Angeles, but nothing that I can talk about right now.
All right.
But I hope that I can bring that to you, to your table, sometime very soon.
When you can talk about it, you know my number.
Yeah, I know where you live.
That's right. We do live a couple of blocks away. Listen, Alex Simmons, Captain America: The Shield of Sam Wilson. Pick it up wherever books are sold and enjoy it. Enjoy it with your kids, and let's celebrate superheroes.
Yes. Take care, Gary.
Alex Simmons. Sure. Alex Simmons is one of them. There we go. We'll see you around town, my friend. So that will do it for the Bronx Buzz. Thank you to Steven over at the Riverdale Press, who joined us earlier. And you know what we say: if the curtain don't fall, the creek don't rise. We'll see you next week. Good night.